consultant to billion-dollar businesses. He's here to share insights on how to de-escalate any situation. Please welcome safety man, Corey Jones. My man.
Daniel, thanks a lot for including me on this podcast. It's been a while since we connected, so I'm really glad we got to connect a little bit before we went live. And, de-escalation and communication is always something that's important to me. And fortunately, I still have clients that need it. And I'm always happy to talk about and help your clients and anyone who's fortunate enough to listen to your podcast.
Thank you. I was writing down a formula before. Safety plus technology plus time means things should get better. But what I'm saying is that more technology and more time, things, in my opinion, seem to be getting worse. And the reason why I say that is when I watch the Australian news, and I haven't lived in the country for a good 20 years, I see more problems on the streets than ever before. And I'm thinking, with all of this technology and all of this time, it should be better, but it's worse. So I want to figure out what's the root cause of this problem and then figure out how do we de-escalate situations. What's your insights on it?
Well, it's funny you talked about technology, right? What the technology has given us is that instant communication, but focus on that word communication. We're not really communicating. I might be throwing a comment up on something that I see on social media or sending somebody a text. There's no face-to-face. There's no ability to read other nonverbals or body language. There's no pitch, no tone, no anything that's going on. It's just words. And I'm sure you could probably, and your guests could probably attest to the fact where they send somebody a text message or they received a text message and like, well, what did he mean by that? And then you have to go, haha, LOL, right? That's the body language. That's the de-escalation in text messaging or online communication, that LOL, right? I didn't really mean what I said, just in case you took it wrong. So I think that's probably what the root cause of it could be attributed to. I'm not a big believer in one cause for one problem, but I think a lot of it could be due to that. We're lacking an ability to have face-to-face communication, especially coming out of the pandemic.
I've got a beautiful new telephone. It's a Samsung Flip 7, and it flips open and close. And it brings me a lot of joy just flipping it open and close. But nobody calls me anymore. Nobody calls. The phone doesn't ring. And back when I was growing up, all we wanted to do was to have a mobile phone and not to text one another, but it was to call one another. And I remember that's what it was like 25 and 30 years ago, but now it's via text message. And you've got to be able to be skilled at interpreting that communication, because it's not always that person's intention, what's inside of that message. And I think it gets a lot of cover up with a lot of AI slosh. So somebody takes their message, they run it through ChatGPT, make it sound formal, and then you've got to try to interpret it. But those giveaways, as you mentioned, the tone, the tempo, the pitch, the pace, you can't pick it up specifically in the communication. So you're left interpreting in here. And I call it mind reading. I'm trying to mind read. I'm trying to do a best guess of what this actually means. But it could be so far away from their original intention that it becomes confusing. And so I think that technology and even new software that we have access to puts another layer of confusion in there. Rather than just hitting the nail on the head and getting to the point, it's wordsmithed. And now I've got to work my way through the wordsmithing and the marketing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And so we're getting lazy, right? Like you said, ChatGPT, we're getting lazy. I'm not even coming up with sentences, paragraphs, spelling, grammar, anything myself. I'm letting something else do it. So now if I'm the recipient of that and I'm lazy with my ability to communicate effectively and professionally, I'm also not going to be as skilled in interpreting something that comes to me, because I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I'm not sure if it's there, or there, the three different ways you could spell that word. I'm sure everybody listening to this right now, as soon as I said that, they've got three people in their head right now that say, yeah, that's one person I know that doesn't even know the difference of those three words. So now we're going to make a judgment. And then we're talking about de-escalation. Now we're prejudging somebody based on just how they spell a word, how they use grammar or fail to use grammar properly. And that's going to give us potentially a negative attitude towards that person. And now we're not going to be able to read them or interpret them correctly. So we have to, whenever I teach or coach de-escalation now, I always say the first person that has to be de-escalated is us. We have to make sure that we don't escalate the situation. So now we talk about in America a lot pre-escalation. So we're teaching law enforcement officers pre-escalation. Get your mind, get your body, get your demeanor straight before you go and engage this person.
Mm. There was a girl I went to school with, and back in 2012, 2013, she would always message me. And she'd say, Daniel, before you put something out on social media, you can send it to me for spell check because your spelling and grammar is terrible. And I shot her back a message and I said, when I speak, do I ever make any spelling mistakes when I speak? And she said, no. I said, good. So when I write it and there's the spelling mistakes and the grammar problems, then you know it's me. And so back then I used to have people write to me and say, your spelling's off. But now my spelling and grammar is absolutely perfect thanks to this technology.
Right.
But coming back to credibility and coming back to the unique person, if one of my friends messages me there and it's got an IR in it instead of an RE, I know it's really them.
That is true. So it gives you that authenticity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you know what? There's no spelling, there's no grammar, there's no commas, there's no full stops, there's no hyphens, there's no exclamation marks. It's from a human. And you can kind of interpret whether they're having a joke, LOL, without even having to put the emoji in there.
Yeah.
I find that. The other thing that I was thinking about, Corey, is that more laws plus tougher sentences should equal lower crime. And so I wrote this down before we spoke. Wouldn't it make sense that it'd be safer if we had more laws, tougher sentences, and that's got to equal lower crime? But what I see is that there's more laws than ever before. There's tougher sentences, but people have got more excuses. There's more exceptions to the rule, and they've also got less fear. So it comes back to, in my mind, less safety. And an example of that is I see these people coming into Australia, and I'm only seeing it on the news, so I've got to take the news at face value. They're coming into Australia, they're undocumented, and they're raping women and children on the first day they arrive in the country. Day one. They haven't even done 24 hours yet. They get arrested, they get taken to the police station. Most people would have gone immediately to jail, but they're let off immediately. Most people would have been deported a decade ago, but they're let off immediately. So they know from day one that these laws, all you need is a better excuse than the law. And you get off. So our population is becoming less safe. And that's,
it sounds like the offenders that you're talking about are masters at de-escalation, because they're de-escalating the criminal justice system. They're making the criminal justice system treat them less severely. So that's almost a perfect example of de-escalation. They found the perfect way to do it by the excuses that you're mentioning, right? They'll get public perception, public support, people who don't really understand the severity of the crimes that are being committed to feel for them because of a picture that's on social media or something. So then they're getting a lighter sentence. So I think that's almost a perfect example of how they have mastered de-escalation.
Mm.
You know?
So we've got escalation, we've got pre-escalation, and we've got de-escalation. Where does the conversation have to start to be good at de-escalation?
You have to, and you may remember this from past communications that I've had, is establish the goals. I have to know what the person I'm talking to, what their goal is. And it may change during the encounter, but when I approach them, when I'm in their midst, whatever the situation is, what is this person's goal? And then I have to determine what my goal is. So as soon as we can determine that, not necessarily what they're saying, what they're doing, I got to start to be a little introspective and take my training and experience and maybe what other people are saying when I get there and determine what does this person want or not want? What are they afraid of? What are they driving towards? And then as soon as I can figure that out, then I can start to categorize it. I don't know if you guys in Australia have the Karens, the people that it's usually women that just, that's why they call them Karens, that just they're not happy unless they're not happy, right?
We're getting more male Karens too.
Yeah, so they're the Kens. I call them the Kens, right? The Kens. So you can try to categorize these people into one of three people: a Karen, right, or Ken, a criminal, or, and I know this word isn't politically correct right now, but or crazy. So remember those three C's. Are they emotionally disturbed? Are they crazy? They acting out of character? Because that takes a specific kind of de-escalation, right? Are they a criminal? Right? That takes a specific type of interaction. Or a Karen, which also has a different interaction. So each one of those people have a goal, and each one of them, we're going to then have to determine what that is, categorize that behavior as best we can. It may change. It could be both, right? They could be an emotionally disturbed person who is committing a criminal violation, right? So which one do I have to deal with first? Well, which one's more dangerous? Which one's less safe? And handle that one first.
Interesting you say the crazy ones. Ninny, my wife, was walking the kids to school and she rang me and she said, there's a weirdo in the park and he's following me. You got to get down here really quickly. And so the first thing is I probably think he's a criminal. He's going to put a hand on her or try to do something. So I get down there as quickly as I can. And then I'm looking through the park to try to find this guy. And there's nobody in there who looks like they're going to commit a crime. There's nobody who's suspicious. They're not hiding a weapon or anything. But there was one guy who looked mentally disturbed. And he fitted the description. And I went over there and I started to talk to him. And he actually spoke English. And I was looking at his eyes and he had like the crazy eyes. And I thought to myself, he's not a criminal. He's got to be a bit crazy. And I felt that my size and his size, I had a size advantage. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to take off his mask because a lot of people wear masks here. So I reached over and I took off his mask and he didn't attempt to stop me. And I pulled down the mask. And then when I saw the whole face, he definitely had some mental health issues. And immediately I backed right off and went, oh, he's not a criminal. He's crazy.
Right.
And so my approach to him stopped immediately. I felt that I de-escalated really quickly. I just stepped back and went, okay, there's no point talking to this person. Just walk away. It's probably just a strange behavior.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not with a criminal intent.
Yeah, not a criminal intent. Clearly wasn't a Karen. So you were able to, within about 5 seconds, start to draw that conclusion. And then you confirmed it, right? You had an assumption, and then you did some sort of action, activity, or words or something to then pretty much confirm it. So then you're like 99% sure that this person was crazy. Again, I don't like to say that word, but I'd like to teach it in the 3 C's so people can remember what it is. And a lot of times, like you, it immediately evoked a story, like an emotionally charged story. You thought your wife was in danger, right? So you could immediately draw a conclusion from that. So that was really good. You assessed that. So that's my point to your question. Where does the conversation have to start? We determine what their goals are, then try to categorize the behavior that we see, whether they're Karen, crazy, or criminal, and then we'll determine on what we need to do. And your de-escalation was, there's no need for me to continue to deal with this person. So you're going to get off the X and get to safety.
When I was growing up in Australia, we had a lot of crazy people, and we referred to them as river rats. And they were called river rats because they lived under the bridge right on the river. And they would come out during the daytime and they'd drink alcohol. And they would exhibit bizarre behaviors, but it was all based in very poor mental health. And so as the normal residents of the area walked down the street, they never felt threatened by the yelling and the screaming. They just knew that they were the crazy ones. And that was never a problem. And when they would come into our pawnbroking business, we never felt threatened because we know the conversation was with somebody in their head. It wasn't with us particularly. But there was other people who were definitely criminals, and their demeanor was very different. They would come in and you could sense that their agenda was different. And I like what you said before, was like pre-escalation. They've decided before they've walked in the door that they have a goal for this interaction. And so now we have to respond effectively to that. And a lot of times it makes the heart jump. The adrenaline starts to pump. It feels like you're going to pee your pants when you meet some of these people. Sometimes your legs go a little bit weak, but you can't run. Your back's against the wall. You're in the shop.
Right.
But you've got to figure a way out of it without without raising the voice too much, because I've noticed in my time, you raise the voice, it's like raising a fist. And if I raise my voice, you're going to raise yours. So I've got to be able to bring that emotional temperature back down. What do we do in situations with the criminals?
Well, I like what you said. When you walked into the shop, you did exactly what we talked about, right? You categorize their behavior. And the way you're able to do that is, again, you pointed to your innate human nature. Your gut sense told you there's something wrong with this person. Not a Karen. They're not crazy. Well, it leaves only one left. They're a criminal, right? I mean, yeah, there's the normal person. We don't have to worry about that. You're not going to get the gut feeling. So first, you prime yourself. You have the baseline of how normal people come into your shop, right? This person's looking for something. This person has a complaint about something. This person stumbled into the wrong shop, whatever it is. That's the normal people. And then that 1 in 100 people that comes in that exhibits some anomaly, some behavior that's not normal, you're going to immediately look at it and you're going to start to categorize it. What is this person doing? And then you're going to base that also not on just the gut feeling, but on past experience. So when this has happened 1, 2, 10 times before to you, and then other people that you're friends with that have similar shops, that have similar experiences, you're going to develop a catalog of behaviors and feelings and say, all right, this person's going to steal, this person's going to try and bounce a check or flim flam or do something worse with violence. So then you want to have some canned responses, right? Whether you have an alarm system, whether if you need a weapon, a firearm, or some sort of self-defense tool, if you do have an emergency escape, cameras, signage to even prevent that beforehand, right? Signs, cameras. Somebody wants to do something. I've always said, since my wife's from Slovakia, so I know a couple words in Slovak. So if somebody tries to do something for me, I might pretend I only speak Slovak, right? Get it, and just start saying stuff. First thing, see people and just throw them off balance just for a minute. It's not aggressive, right? I'm not yelling, I'm not raising my voice, I'm not calling them names, but I'm throwing them off balance. If it's a true person that wants to do something like a legitimate transaction, then they're going to tolerate that. Oh, I don't understand. I don't speak that. But if it's a criminal, their reaction is going to be something different and just make them have to reevaluate their plan and start over again. That's the things I like to do is trust your instinct, base it in reality and past experiences, and then have some sort of canned responses, some planned responses, whether they be self-defense tools, escape hatch, or using some outside influence, whether it be cameras, signs, or things like that to keep yourself safe. And then when you feel safe, your stress levels should go down a little bit more and you can start making better choices.
I like that you use language because I use it here as well to my advantage. And in NLP, we call it a break state. And so speaking to somebody in a foreign language has its advantage. It breaks their state and they have a little bit of a shock for a moment. Oh, what's going on? I didn't get the response that I was looking for. So when I meet somebody who might be a little bit crazy or a criminal here in Taiwan, the first thing that lets me know that something's weird is they'll ask me if I speak English. So first of all, it's like they're announcing that, hey, I can speak English, and they're asking me. So I look at them and I say in perfect English, I don't speak English. And it shocks them because in perfect English, I've said, I don't speak English. And they go, and in that pause, I can take off because in my mind, there's always an announcement. When I was with Emirates Airline, the Karens would always announce themselves and they would walk down the air bridge. They would get to the door of the aircraft, and as soon as they put one foot inside the aircraft, they would look at the seniors, myself or one of the other team members, and say, can I get a complaint form? And you'd say, you'd like a complaint form? Sir, for what purpose? Just in case.
Wow. Wow.
So you would see the Karen and they would announce themselves. They'd always ask for something really bizarre. The crazy ones, they would also exhibit different behaviors. And so they would walk around the aircraft and eventually they'd find their way to the galley. And you might be at 40,000 feet and they'd say, where's the smoker's room? And you'd say, just that door there. And they'd go try to open the door. Then you'd walk over and say, what are you doing? They're like, I'm going outside for a cigarette. And you'd say, you do realize we're at 40,000 feet, traveling at 900 kilometers an hour. They'd say, yes, I just want to go out for a cigarette. And they would develop what we would call is an aircraft brain, low oxygen saturation. They can't think clearly, but they exhibit some interesting behaviors. But again, it was an announcement.
Yes.
Or they might be looking through the menu and they'd say, well, Daniel, I don't like anything on the menu. I want a hamburger and a chocolate milkshake. And I'd say, sir, would you like fries with that? And what do you want? Do you want McDonald's or do you want Burger King? That's how McDonald's would be wonderful. Say, sir, we're at 40,000 feet. I can give you what's on the menu, but you'll have to wait till we get grounded for McDonald's. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is Emirates Airline. You should be able to give that to me right now. But it was always...
Did you find that would disarm them?
I beg your pardon?
Did you find that would disarm them?
It would.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Because it would confuse them. That it was like a reality check, almost. Bring them back to reality, play their game for a little bit. And in NLP, what we say is, enter into the other person's model of the world. And one of the examples was that I learned in NLP, if people told you that they saw UFOs, enter into that model of the world. Oh, you saw a UFO. What did it look like? And how far were you away? And just understand where they're at. Because if you can meet them where they're at, even if they're a little bit crazy or a Karen or potentially a criminal, at least you know their baseline. Okay, this is your starting point. And then, like you mentioned before, what's the goal? Okay, so you're seeing UFOs, you've been abducted by aliens. Excellent. Tell me about that. And where do you want to go to from here? And that was what we would call enter into the other person's model of the world. And until we understand their model of the world or how they see the world, it's very hard to move forward from that. Because I'm locked in my position, you're locked in yours, I'm interpreting that you're crazy. No, enter into that model of the world. Get an understanding of it. It was like the gentleman who I saw in the park. Once I took off his mask and I realized this is a mental health problem, I could change my approach. I didn't take it personally anymore. It wasn't a personal attack to anybody. It's like, okay, let's get him on the bus. Let's get him on the right direction.
Yeah. I like what you said with enter the other person's world. When I teach you, we call that tactical empathy, right? I'm being empathetic to what you're saying. I'm not agreeing. I'm not saying that I also see the UFOs, but I love the way you phrase that. That's exactly very similar to what we would do is tactical empathy, right? I'm being empathetic to you, not because I necessarily care. I'm not saying I don't, but not necessarily because I care, but it's going to benefit me or benefit the situation. It may benefit you as well if I think you're going to hurt yourself or be a danger to yourself or others. So that tactical empathy does that. I want to go back to the Karens. I like how you said that the Karens will announce themselves, right? And we have to find out what the Karens want. They have a goal. They usually want attention. They want to give you some insurmountable problem. So now you spend all your time, effort, and energy trying to do something for them. And they can't make it easy because they realize that if it's easy, they get no attention. They don't get that endorphin rush from you spending time, effort, and energy on them. So what we want to do is completely disarm them. Whatever they do, if we can do it for them, immediately do it for them. All right, I'll get you a complaint form right now. I actually have a pen too, also, and a board, so you don't have to write on your lap or leg or anything like that. Let me know if there's anything else you need. My name's Daniel. I got you. Right, and it's so disarming because they're used to people battling against them. You know, I use that a lot at work with the Karens. Just whatever you want, and it disarms them. Then they'll go bother somebody else.
And I saw that same thing with Emirates. If you didn't give them the complaint form, it was like they had one over you. I'm going to keep asking, and you're going to deny me, and it escalates. Okay, here's the pen. Here's the form, sir. If you need some help, if you need names, etc., staff numbers, let me give them to you. Oh.
Yeah.
We used to get some other people. And I think these were the criminals on the aircraft, and they don't realize it's stealing. But in an aircraft, you normally have a complement. So you have economy class, business class, and first class. And if economy class is full, the airline is profitable. If business class is full, that's the cream on top. And if first class is full, that's the cherry. And this is a really profitable flight. But not all seats in business class and first class are occupied. And so sometimes what happens is people who are behind the curtain in economy class, they take a look up the front. They put their head through the curtain and they look for the vacant seats. And then when the lights go down and we dim the lights, they sneak from economy into business class. They hop in the lounge, they put the blanket over their head, and they recline the seat. And they start to sleep. And what they don't realize is that's theft. That seat is valued at $15,000. Yours is valued at $1,500, and now you're stealing. And we had to deal with that on the aircraft very quickly. And the people who were just trying their luck to see what they could get away with, they were very compliant. Okay, you caught me. I'm going to go back to economy class and I'm going to hang my head in shame. But the people who were going to fight you for it, they would get really aggressive. They would yell, they would scream, they would punch, they would kick. And we couldn't go there and de-escalate as an individual. We had to go with our team. And at times you even had to take the onboard handcuffs to be able to control them and to fully restrain them. But that was the last thing that we ever wanted to do.
Right.
But there was a big gap in between to learn how to de-escalate that situation.
It's interesting you bring up that story. I was contracted by a safety conglomerate for American Airlines, not American Airlines company, but airlines that are based in America. And that was one of the things they talked about was in-flight de-escalation. And one of the tips that I gave them was one, I like what you said, that you had the plan, you categorized, right? You could immediately tell, all right, this person's going to be compliant. They're just trying to sneak through, whatever. Not a big deal. They go back, but they're easy. But those 1 in 100 that you actually have to potentially have a conversation, their voices get raised and maybe have to go physical. We try to do a lot of the pre stuff. So even beforehand, signage in the airport, signage in the gateway, making sure that you have that face to face with somebody. So I looked at you, you looked at that person face. What seat are you in? Okay, 29C, 11D, whatever it is. And that can minimize it a little bit because I can't go by when Daniel's up there because he already looked at me. So now that shortens my window of when I can go try to commit this theft. And then when you go up there, people say, hey, you remember we talked about this. If you're in this seat, then they're going to charge you for this. They'll ban you from the airline. We can sign complaints against you when you land here. We can sign complaints against you when you go back to your home city. We don't want to do all that, right? We don't want to embarrass them. We also put the names of everybody in the newspaper if they're arrested. We'll ban you from this airline. We'll ban you from the airport, ban you from the terminal, and try to figure out which one of these motivating factors is going to cause them to voluntarily comply. Right. And I'm sure you've done all these things, but I'm saying it for the benefit of everybody listening and watching, is we have to know where we can go. Like we have to know what things we can take away from somebody or what force we can bring to bear on somebody. Right. So I have to know that, hey, if I'm going to sign complaints against you, I know that I'm allowed to make a criminal complaint against you. If I'm going to be able to ban you from the airline, I have to know that I can do that. I have to have the support of my team and my management that is going to back me implicitly if we take these steps. So that all happens before the actual event in your briefings, in your training, in your documentation and all that. Going in that you have this toolbox that you're allowed to bring to bear, with the training and preparation. I tried one, failed. Skip two, wouldn't have worked, went to 3, 4, and so forth. So that pre-event training and the support gives you the confidence to actually act and the competence to act effectively. And that's really big. So the other 2 C's, right? Confidence and competence. And when we increase those in our team, we can make them much better at gaining compliance.
I was doing a flight from Dubai to Larnaca into Malta. And then on the return, we go Malta, Larnaca, Dubai. And we got to Larnaca Airport and we had a customer sneak up from economy class into business class. And we had to deplane, get all the passengers off the aircraft and the new ones on. And then we're going to do our security checks. We wanted to check his ticket, but he wouldn't show his ticket. And so he started to escalate. And my team went and spoke to him and they couldn't get the ticket. And I went and spoke to him and his response was to spit on me. So I left him in his seat. I went back to the galley. The only thing that I could sterilize my face with was vodka. So I got vodka in the hand, cleaning my face, skin's getting dry. And I went out and I spoke to him again. And this time I couldn't get him to talk. So I went to the captain. I said, look, we've got a problem in business class. We've got a customer who won't reveal his ticket. We're doing safety and security checks. What do you want me to do? He said, what I'll do is I'll call the local police at the airport. So they'll come on the aircraft, but they will be armed. He said, let's deal with it here in Larnaca rather than dealing with the problem back into Dubai. Because if we get back into Dubai, he'll be arrested, he'll be put in jail, but all of us will be grounded and we will have to go through an investigation. So what that means is we will arrive after our shift and we will have to go to the airport police for a period of time. It could be 6 hours, it could be 12 hours, it could be 18 hours. We could be there. So let's deal with it here with the authorities. So he said, what I want you to do is I want you to get the customer out of his seat and I want you to bring him to the door. And once he's close to the door, the authorities can take over. So eventually I persuaded him to come to the galley for a conversation. And when I got there, he decided to push kick me. So, you know, one of those kicks where you put your leg out in front and you kick him with your heel.
Yeah.
He did that to me and I went flying across the galley. And it was beautiful because the armed police were already there waiting for him. So as soon as he assaulted me, they were able to arrest him. Everybody in business class and economy class, big round of applause, got him off the aircraft, and they dealt with him in Larnaca. And the problems for him would have escalated because Larnaca would have been a place where he probably had no embassy. He probably had no representation for his passport, and he could have been tied down there for days or for weeks. So It was very strategic. Don't take it to Dubai because it'll impact us. Let's deal with it here so it doesn't create an in-flight emergency, but the authorities will be stricter here and it'll be harder for him. And it was uncomfortable to go through that, but it was much better to deal with it on ground than at 40,000 feet and having to divert an aircraft.
Yeah. So the great thing about that story, Daniel, is now you've done that. At the end of when I'm teaching de-escalation, I always talk about celebrating those victories, right? Making sure that we know when we've had a victory. Now, I'm not saying that getting kicked across the galley is a victory, but you were able to get the person off the airplane without unnecessarily interrupting your flight or the other passengers' flights and so forth. So at the end of the day, that was a victory. But what did we learn from that is now the next time something like that happens, you can speak accurately to the next person. Hey, listen, really need you to comply. This has happened before. And what happened before is this person got kicked off. He got arrested in a country that doesn't have an embassy. It took him, I don't know how long he stayed there, but he didn't take our flight. He was never going to be allowed to fly our aircraft again. So he had to buy another ticket. He had to deal with the criminal justice system there. You don't want that. Do you know what their criminal justice system even is in this town that we're stopping over in? You don't. We do. It's not going to be good for you. You are an American. You are this, you are that, whatever. So we can start piling all these potential consequences on them that hopefully change their goal. It's like, you know what? It's not worth me sitting up here. You're right. I'm sorry. Let me go back to my seat, or here's my ticket, whatever the goal might be. So by celebrating their victories, one, you get a little bit of an endorphin rush. That's good. Your management says that. But two, you're sharing it with the other team. So now they're learning from that victory. And so then they can have more things in their toolbox should something like that happen again.
And it is a tool. That experience is absolutely a tool because you don't want to waste your time. As cabin crew, we don't get paid when we're on ground. So it's financially hurting. Like, do I want this to escalate when I'm on ground? No. Do I want it to escalate when I'm in the air? No, because if it leads to a diversion, I'm going to be stuck in some foreign country myself. I don't want that. And it does make you rethink the approach. And I think all of us should learn these skills of de-escalation. And the reason why I think we should learn them is that these are skills that we have to learn. We're not born with these particular skills, but they're a type of skill that you can learn once and keep forever. Like what I learned in the airlines, I can still apply in my life today. So if anything happens today, I can still get a return on the investment of that training that was 15 years ago. It still serves its purpose. And in the future, something's going to happen. When I look at the news, I know that there's a greater chance of something happening, or one of these Karens, one of the criminals, or one of the crazies are going to be in my area. And if I can de-escalate it and get out of there, it's a lot better. And I back that up by saying when I learned how to fight when I was younger, I trained in boxing and I trained in different types of martial arts. The goal was never to have a fight. The goal was never to fight anybody. The goal was just to have those skills so you had the confidence. If you were in that situation, you could protect yourself. But every trainer I had was, don't get into a fight. Whatever you do, get away. That's the best result. And I think that served me very well.
Indeed.
But we've got to learn.
Indeed, Daniel.
So people who want to learn skills of de-escalation, whether it's an individual or a business, where do they find safety man Corey Jones?
All right. Well, thanks, Daniel. Safetyman.co, safetyman like Superman, all one word, .co, or follow me on all social media at safetymanco on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, not on Snapchat yet, but at safetymanco on all social media. And I'd be more than happy to virtually or in person come and help coach your team to be safe, legal, and effective, and to have the confidence and competence to act with courage under pressure.
Corey, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Stay safe.
Thank you.